Hi everyone, I am Lexi. I'm your host for Lexi's Book Nook. This is a book talk, or not book talk, booktube episode, bonus episode, actually for the month of July. So if you listen to my podcast, Lexi's Book Nook, I have it on Spotify for free, also on Amazon Prime and Audible. And I also have a Patreon page if you want to support my podcast where you can see me right here. You get to see my little book nook corner, get inspiration for your own, and you get to see book titles. So if you listen to my podcast, I post twice a month. The beginning of the month, I will go over a very quick episode on what I'm reading for the month. So like if you could see this right here, this is my pile for August so far of all the books I'll be reading. So in my first episode, I just kind of go over what to expect and what I'll be reading. And then when we get to the end of the month or the second episode, I will go over a brief summary of each book, my thoughts and review for the book, and then 3 discussion questions. So this is a podcast meant for those are looking for a book club and they want to start one that don't know where to begin or what books to use, or if you're in a book club and you need some inspiration and some ideas for your group, this is the podcast for you. So I will go over a lot of different books in a variety, and I will get you started with a few discussion questions that you can bring to your club. But today's episode is a bonus episode, meaning that it's a book that was not on a previous podcast episode. So it's like a little pop-up surprise. So today's episode is on Dreamland by Nicholas Sparks. I love reading his books every summer for my beach read. Whenever I'm on the beach, I'll read one of his books. Last year it was The Wish. This year it is Dreamland. So I don't have the book with me because it was a library book of my grandma, so she had to return it. But here is the title art. Cover art. I know you can't see it because phones are weird and they have a lot of glares. You can start to see it a little bit more. There you go. So it has like a light bluish green sky with a couple of birds and a field of wheat. So I'm going to go over the summary, my thoughts on it, and then just 3 discussion questions, nothing too long. So Dreamland is about a North Carolinian, Colby Mills. He puts his dreams on hold to run his family's dairy farm, giving up his musical career. When he gets the chance to play a gig at a bar in St. Pete Beach on the Gulf Coast of Florida for a few weeks, his family urges him to go. He enjoys his laid-back time on the beach doing what he loves best, music, and meets Morgan Lee from Chicago, whose life is the opposite of Colby's. She has everything at her fingertips, from talent, money, family, and education. Most of all, she is pursuing her dream of music. Even though the two are opposites, they bond over their love of music. Colby is not jealous of her opportunities, but encourages her. He writes music and is talented, and Morgan sees this in him. They fall in love. She wants him to go to Nashville with her. However, Colby knows this romantic fling cannot last because he is called back to the farm with family obligations and an emergency. How will the two be able to develop an ongoing relationship from a distance? Can they make it work? In another parallel story, a woman, Beverly, on the run from her abusive husband with her son. Her money and time are running out, and she is desperate. How are they connected? You have to read the book to find out. But my thoughts are mostly on the 2 point of views, and I kind of get past of Nicholas using this. I know he's probably done it in past books that I can't remember at this time, but it was very different because it was a little darker, and I was not a huge fan of it. So the first one starts on Beverly, a woman who is fleeing from an abusive husband. I thought her chapters were very heartfelt. They were very passionate and very intense. I felt a little more connected to her in her journey than Colby's. And I was more invested in her story. Like, I really want to know what's going to happen next. And, is she going to stay away from her husband? Is he going to catch her? Is she going to keep her son safe? I was really invested in that story. But at the end, when they tied Beverly's story to Colby's, I thought it was very ridiculous. It was a cop-out. Her story was basically a lot of fluff to the book that didn't need to be added. It could have been just a tie-in at the end. And nothing much had to be said about Beverly from the very beginning. So I thought it was kind of ridiculous and unnecessary. And I thought it was very unlike Nicholas Sparks to do that. But going for the second point of view with Colby, I didn't buy his relationship with Morgan it seemed very superficial and was missing something that made it really connected. Like, they didn't have much of a connection. They only had their passion with music. They had nothing else in common. So I didn't think it was very realistic for this relationship, or very tangible, or something sustainable either. I also found like the relationship was very superficial because he seemed to be very physically attracted to Morgan. Uh, there's like this idea of like what this beautiful girl wants to do with me kind of mentality. And he kept saying how shocked he was about how smart or sophisticated she was, even though she was just really pretty. And he always commented on how tiny she was and how skinny she was. And like twice in less than 5 pages, he says how he doesn't that she doesn't weigh enough to tip over the kayak, and asked her, "You eat cookies? You don't look like you eat cookies." And that she only ate like green tea and green juice for breakfast. And it's like, I found this something really wrong for a guy to be attracted to this in a woman. Like, why is that something to admire? It's not healthy. And being a registered dietitian, which is my full-time job, I would not uh, allow anybody to eat like that, to be honest, because it's not sustainable. It's not actually good for you. You're very deficient of nutrients. But I think it was Nicholas Sparks' way of keeping the story modern and what girls nowadays are doing. But he also had like Colby like admire this kind of eating habits. So just from my professional standpoint, I would not have like, if I had a teenage girl reading this, I would not want them to, because it's kind of like enforcing these habits to eat a certain way or to look a certain way, and that's okay and it's expected. It's like, no, it's not. And I really didn't like this picture that Nicholas Sparks created for Morgan. Even though it is modern, they use TikTok and Instagram and all that, I do not approve. So like, I really did not like this depiction of Morgan and how girls should look like. And so like, I like their love, I like the passion between them, but their love story is not believable. So even though I liked it, it wasn't believable. I liked the two characters, Colby and Beverly. However, with the two point of views combined, it was my least favorite Nicholas Sparks book. I think I gave this like 2 stars, maybe 3 at the most. And I was trying to rack my brain for some discussion questions. I couldn't really think of anything. And I didn't see any online either. So like, I don't have any discussion questions. I just want to throw out all my very strong opinions about Dreamland. I love The Wish, cried like a baby. My favorites are Walk to Remember, The Notebook, True Believer, because the main character is named Lexi, spelled the same way as mine, so I felt like a deep connection there, even though it's just really silly. But she was also a reader. But there are so many better Nicholas Sparks books out there, and I would not recommend Dreamland. If you are a diehard fan of his, Dreamland is a very, very different book. And I read it because it's Nicholas Sparks, but I did not really enjoy it so much. But that is it for this episode. I don't have anything else for you. So this episode's this bonus episodes are usually really quick. But if you want to listen to my podcast, it is Lexi's Book Nook. It's spelled Lexie. It's on Spotify, Amazon Prime, and Audible. If you want to support the podcast, it's also on Patreon, so you can still listen to it, but you also get to see me and see all these bonus episodes. So if you're listening to my podcast on Spotify, you won't get the bonus episodes. So the Patreon account has that bonus feature, as well as this BookTube channel, so you can see me, my book nook, and inspiration for your own. You can see book titles. I know the phone's not the best way, but I do have copies like this, where you can actually see it a lot better. But that is it for you guys. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you keep on reading.